Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about investing and how easy it actually is, right? Because the key to building wealth is developing good habits like regular putting money away every month, right? Instead of going to Starbucks, right? Start making coffee at home, right? You can get just about anything on your phone, and then with investing these days, it's the same thing, right? If you can automate your bills, why not your investments? Right? It's super easy, and with so many different options. I mean, let's be honest. Investing for people who are just getting into it, for beginners, is really simple. And it's really straightforward. So, first thing we're going to talk about is what's called the cookie jar approach, right? Saving money, investing, it's, they're pretty similar, right? You got to save money to invest money, right? Um, a lot of times it really depends on what you're doing for what you're saving money for, right? Like if you want to save money to invest it in the stock market, that's one thing. But if you're saving money to a down payment for a home, stuff like that, it's nothing. But in order to invest money, you got to save it up, right? It'll take a lot less time than you think, and you can do it in like small steps, right? You can basically get like an envelope or a shoebox or a bank account or something like that, and you just put in a little bit each time, right? The digital version of the cookie jar is a savings account, and you can automate that. Automatically just have $10, right? This is what I do, right? I have my checking account and my savings account, and every time I get paid, X amount goes into my savings account. Every time I get paid. And then I invest that money or a certain amount of the money into the things I want to invest it in, right? So it's super easy. It's automatic. I don't even have to think about it, right? Next thing we're going to talk about Robo Advisors. Now, they've been around for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years, at least, I would say, right? And they make investing pretty simple, right? You don't really need any experience because the way a Robo Advisor is going to work is it's going to ask you a few questions, right? Like, what are your goals? How much risk tolerance do you have? Right? And then it's going to invest your money for you in, over a handful, 10, 20, 30 different stocks and bonds based on the answers to those questions, right? And then the robo-advisors are going to use algorithms to continually rebalance your portfolio and to optimize it, right? So there's really no easier way to get started in long-term investing, right? Most robo-advisors require, $400 or $500, maybe a little bit less to start investing. And the fees can usually be, percentage based or like a flat amount. I think it really depends on who you go with. I haven't looked into all of them. Most of the ones that I know about, right, they charge a percentage of your balance. So, if you invest $10,000, right, if the percentage is 0.25%, you $25 a year. And you're like, $25 a year, that's nothing. But what if you have $100,000 invested, right? Well, that's $250 a year. You do that over 10 years, right, it's $2,500. I mean, it can get up there really quick before you know it. So the other thing we're going to talk about is investing in the stock market yourself, right? Because usually the barrier to entry to investing in the stock market, most people think it's the cost, right? But the internet's made it really easy for people to get started in the stock market with very little upfront money, right? You can put a few dollars in, familiarize yourself with what's going on, how things work before you decide to put that giant lump sum in there, right? It's a good way to learn about investing while putting a very low amount of your money at risk, right? There's so many options these days opening up, for all the new investors and stuff that let you get started with incredible low amount of money and little to no trade commissions. Think about, your apps like M1 Finance, Robinhood, and, all those things. Like, that's what we're talking about, right? So the next thing we're going to talk about is real estate. Now, you don't actually need a lot of money to invest in real estate, not in the way we're going to talk about. Because there's a new category of real estate investment known as real estate crowdfunding, right? And that makes it so that you can own fractional shares of properties, right? And you're not the landlord, Okay, so crowdfunding real estate investments do require a larger minimum investment than Robo Advisors. So, like the example we gave earlier was it might cost about $500. Well, instead of 500, it might cost you 5,000 as a minimum payment. The other thing is these are a lot riskier investments because you're putting that entire 5,000 into one single, investment rather than the money you invested earlier with a robo advisor that might have been spread out between 10, 20, 30 different, assets. Another great thing about this type of investing is going to be the fact that you own a physical asset, right? So that's a very positive thing. You could invest in a building where you live, and you can go touch it, you can go walk in there, you can see it, and you can be like, I own part of this building, right? So the next thing we're going to talk about is your employer's retirement plan. Now, I realize a lot of you might not work for an employer that has a retirement plan, right? Which, I mean, really, the only thing I can say to that is, or maybe you get paid enough to where, you know, it's not that big of a deal and you can save money yourself. But I would suggest trying to find an employer who has a retirement plan built in, right? Because if you're tight on a budget, you can just enroll in your employer's 401k, right? And start investing in that. Because a lot of times, you can just invest like 1% of your salary into the employer plan, and you're not even gonna notice it, right? And what makes it even easier though is that the tax deduction that you get from doing that will make the contribution, even smaller. So once you commit to a 1% contribution, you can increase it gradually each year, right? So let's say the next year you increase your contribution to 2% of your pay. In year 3, 3% of your pay, and so on. And if you time those increases with your annual pay raises, you won't even notice you'll still be, you might get a little bit extra money, but you won't even notice like the difference, right? It's not going to be that big of a deal. So if you get a 2% increase in pay and you just increase 1% of your contribution, you'll get a 1% increase in take home pay basically, right? And it's just a really solid, easy way to get started investing, right? And if your employer provides a matching contribution, that'll make it even better, right? Like the company I work for has 5% matching. So if I take out 5% of my salary and invest it, they match 5%. But if I do a 6%, they still only match 5%, right? So the next thing we're going to talk about are mutual funds, right? Low initial investment mutual funds. These are some of the things you hear, a lot of people talk about super low risk, long term investments, right? So mutual funds are investment securities that allow you to invest in a portfolio of stocks and bonds with a single transaction. So a mutual fund it's basically, it has multiple stocks in it, multiple bonds in it, right? But you're paying for it as a whole. So, and usually a lot of people invest in a mutual fund, and that's usually why the cost is so low. So, the trouble is, though, many mutual fund companies require initial minimal investments of 50, 100, all the way up to $5,000. And if you're a first-time investor with little money to invest, some of those minimums they're unrealistic. But some mutual fund companies will waive the account minimums if you agree to do automatic monthly investments, say of like $100. So if every month you automatically do $100, they'll say, don't worry about the minimum, right? Because they know over time, everyone's gonna win, right? And automatic investing is a common feature of mutual funds and ETFs, IRA accounts, stuff like that, right? It's less common with taxable accounts, but it's always worth asking if it's available. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about are Treasury Securities. Now, not many small investors begin investing, in Treasury Securities, but you can, right? You'll never make a lot of money like this, but it is an extremely safe place to put your money, right? And earn, I mean, really low interest, right? And there's different ones, right? You know, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, stuff like that. Um, Now, until, well, it's bad because these interest rates change a lot, right? And it takes forever to get your money. But it's so safe, right? But you can leave them there until you're ready to go into a higher risk, higher return investment, right? So you park your money in a 5 year treasury or a 1 year treasury, and then when maybe you make 2%, 3%, 4%, and then when you're ready, you can go and say, okay, I earned 2.5% of this, 3% of this. I'm ready to invest it in something more risky for a better return, right? Treasury securities are also known as savings bonds, and you can just buy them on the bond portal on their website was it the U.S. Treasury's bond portal, Treasury Direct. And you can buy fixed income U.S. government securities with maturities of anywhere from 30 days to 30 years, right? And denominations as low as $100. And you can also use the Treasury Direct to buy Treasury inflation protected securities, or TIPS or TIPS. They not only pay interest, but they also make periodic principal adjustments to account for inflation based on changes in the what's called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And as in the case with mutual funds, you can also arrange to have your Treasury Direct account funded through your payroll savings, right? So these are just, a couple of ways to get started with investing that make investing really easy, just no brainer things. You don't have to think too much about it. Very low risk to medium risk, right? There's only one high risk one, which would be the crowdfunding real estate, you know. So, go over these things and which one sounds best to you, which one do you like the most, and let me know. And I want to thank you all for watching today. Go ahead and give the video a like if you like it. Go ahead and comment down if what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Let me know what you think. Is there something I missed or anything like that? I hope to see y'all in the next one. Until then, y'all be safe.